Well, you're not alone.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Corey with Outdoor Dad. Come take a look at my fishing kayak. Hey guys, so I was just getting the kayak all ready for a fishing trip this weekend, and I figured I wanted to show you guys how it looks when I've got it all set up and exactly how I fish at it. So come up here, we'll start at the bow. So right here for my nav lights, I've got the Yak Attack LEDs, the red and greens. They're controlled by the Yak power that comes with this kayak. And I've got a Motor Guide XI3 on this kayak. So this is definitely not something that you need. You can still fish with just a paddle and an anchor. But for the stuff I'm doing when I'm dragging baits or when I'm trolling or even just battling the wind here in Kansas, this is pretty much an absolute must for me. You can get by without it, but you're going to spend a lot of time wishing you had one. Moving on back a little bit, if you look right here, that's where I keep my cooler for my cut bait. Obviously it's a little dirty. So what I do, I don't use ice. I'll generally just throw this whole thing in my deep freezer, and I keep a couple of the little refreezable ice packs or whatever in it. Right here, this is where I've got my through hole kit for my transducer for my sonar. And then this is the plug that comes with the Ascend 133X and the XI3. You can buy this whole package together. It's a great kayak. There's some cons to it. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Right here is where I keep my camera mount for my GoPro for front cam. Works really good whenever I'm trying to show off these fish to you guys, especially when I'm trying to get a landing on video. It's kind of hard to do with the chest cam. This is my newest addition to the kayak. Super excited to try these out. These are monster rod holders. These are Talons. They do 5 and 35. Really good kayak. And what I did here, guys, I know a lot of people are worried about the gear tracks. What I did here is I took these gear tracks off, and since I'm not able to access them in the back to put a backing plate, I ran a bunch of JB weld behind them. Then I put the screws back in and let it set. I did this on my last kayak, and just to kind of test it out before I turn it back in, I took all the screws out and I tried to take it off, and it took a lot of pulling to get that off. So I'm pretty confident that that's not going anywhere. I can pick up the whole kayak with one rod holder, and I don't keep my drag super tight, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. All right, here for my graph, I've got a Garmin 93 SV. Got that popped in there. Garmin 93 SV. It's a really good graph. Honestly, I use it for mapping. That's pretty much about 99% of what I do. Kind of helpful sometimes if I'm looking for white bass, and I'll look at fish on it, but I hardly ever find fish to fish, you know. Right here, this is the hatch. I keep my remote in there. Obviously, I'll keep a few sinkers, some power cords, my leader line, just a little bit of everything, my registration stuff. And then I forgot to talk about this right here. In the front, I've got these Yak Attack button lights. I'll show you a video what the kayak looks like at night. So that works really good just to kind of see a little bit. Doesn't really help with my rods, but just to get a little bit of light in the kayak. I've got some back here too. This actually does help. Sometimes I'll angle my rods backwards if I'm spot locking and just casting. I'll put my rods backwards, and this will help me see the tips. And like I said, this is the Yak power that comes installed with this kayak. It's all plug and play. It's really helpful if you're like me and you're not really good at, you know, messing with wiring and stuff like that. It's really nice to just be able to plug it in and play. So right here I have another mount for my phone just for taking pictures, and I'm going to experiment a little bit with going live on some platforms. I don't know how that's going to work. We'll mess with it. It's kind of hard to angle the camera right and then try to catch fish at the same time. Right here in one of these little pockets, I'll just keep some pliers and a bait knife. It's actually a really nice bait knife. Got it from my last unit when I left. Real sharp, great bait knife. So on this, one of the modifications that I did, actually I did not do, but when I got this kayak, it had a swivel seat. It's a really nice feature. Really nice to be able to turn around if I need to get bait. And sometimes, like I said, if I spot lock and I'm casting off the back of the kayak, I'll just turn around and watch the rods like that. This comes with one of these little drawers. I'll keep a cutting board in here, extra hand rag, some sunscreen. I usually don't need this. Sometimes though, keep an extra bait knife. And then one thing that I did that I feel like is an absolute must if you're gonna fish at night is I took one of these little cheap lights at Walmart that my wife bought, and I just kind of did some two-sided tape and put it on. And this is really nice, so whenever I'm sitting here cutting bait or whatever, this is also what I use to do my intros when it's dark. So the way this works, guys, is you can just pop this off to change batteries and everything. And a lot of times when I'm doing my intros when it's still kind of dark and I'm losing patience, so I just set this light right here. Probably can't tell now, but that's actually pretty dang bright. And when I'm doing my intro sitting up in this chair, this provides plenty of light for you guys to see me. So this is exactly how I'm going to be set up when I'm fishing. 90% of the time, I'm usually going to be drifting. Every now and then I'll drag some baits and I'll put an extra rod holder on the back. I would have 4 rod holders. Unfortunately, the state of Kansas only allows you to use 3. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Anyways, once I pull up to the spot and I'm ready to fish, I just reach under my seat and I'll grab this. You know, if it's dark, I'll turn my light on. That's pretty much the only time I use it is when I'm doing intros or if I'm cutting bait. And it's no issue at all. Even I can stand up in this kayak completely fine. Even with the motor going full speed, I'll hit about 4 miles an hour. It's no issues at all for me to stand up. I have 0 issues with stability. So I'll just reach up here, I'll grab my cut bait or whatever, my knife. I try to keep everything where I can reach it. The only time I really have to go back here to get into my tackle box is if I, you know, snag or whatever. And sometimes I'll even keep some leaders in here. But come back here to my live bait tank. From right here, if I want to get some live bait, it's super easy. I usually, once I get to the spot that I'm going to fish and I'm spot locking or dragging or whatever, I'll pull this all the way up here. It's super easy for me to just reach back and get something. I plan on at some point putting a cooler back here. Just for now, this works absolutely fine. But it's no issues at all for me to just reach back, get a piece of live bait, put it on a hook and drop it down. If you'll see all my rod holders, I've got them spaced out just a little bit, but they're all extremely accessible. All I got to do is lean up a little bit. Even my back rod holder, I don't even have to really spin the seat. Just reach back and grab it. Even when I've got some big fish on it, it doesn't take any extra effort to get it out. Another thing I keep on the kayak, obviously if you do any kind of fishing, especially catfishing, you're going to have a bunch of these. This is just an old golf towel, and I'll keep that to keep my hands clean, keep them dry. I can't stand having my hands wet for whatever reason. So like I said, I've got this rigged up just like I'm fishing. So I've got a lead time, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's a 100 amp hour mini. Since it's a mini, it doesn't sit very well in the normal little trough you have here for the battery box. So I've taken this little box here and drilled a couple holes for drainage, and then I've taken some two-sided tape and putting it on the bottom and the sides just to keep the battery in place whenever I plug it in. Then pretty much anytime I'm fishing, I've got live bait. Whether I'm targeting blues, flatheads, it doesn't matter. I'll keep a 5-gallon bucket back here. It sits pretty nice. Don't really have any issues with it. And then of course I'll keep my tackle box and a cast net. That's pretty much all the gear that I keep with me. I don't bring a bunch of tackle. This has everything I need. I'll keep excess at the house. Now that we've covered how I fish it and or how I have it set up for fishing and some of the features on it, I want to talk about a little bit of the bad of this kayak. Alright, if you guys done any research at all on these Ascend 133Xs, one of the first things that's going to come up is how bad these things are for leaking. And that's absolutely true. Unfortunately, you cannot buy this boat straight from the factory and just take it out unless you want water in it. And normally that's alright, you can just drain the water out later, but with this yak power system, if you get it wet, it's going to fry. So these hatches straight out of the box or straight out of the factory, they're absolute trash. You pretty much got to replace them. So I replaced this, and it also gives you access. The factory ones, you don't have it. As you can see, this is kind of a low point, so you're going to get some water to sit in here. I replaced these hatches, and then I put a whole bunch of silicone around here, so that way I don't have to worry about that. Another common issue that I've also experienced with these kayaks is the sag. I don't know how well it's going to show up in this video, but as you can see right there, that's got a lot of sag in it, especially since this is the place, whether you're a bass fisherman, a catfish angler, it doesn't matter. This is probably where you're going to put most of your weight as far as your, you know, your black packs, your crates, your, I've seen people put live wells on one of these kayaks. This is going to have a lot of sag to it. There's just no reinforcement. It's just a thin piece of plastic. I have put some foam under here. There's some really heavy duty dense foam that came with the kayak. I shoved it under there real well, but I've still got some sag. overall, this is a really good kayak. The hull is absolutely amazing. The fact that you have such a wide open hull is really appealing to catfish anglers. I mean, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but to myself, when I saw how big and open this was, I thought about all the space that I would have for landing fish and for adding stuff like bait tanks, live wells, etc. It's a really good hull. The design is a little bit flawed. I really wish Ascend would step up their game and fix some of these common issues. And I've actually emailed them, and they claim that they don't have any idea about the warping and the cracking, which is just not true. If you're on the Ascend 133X group, if you're looking at buying one of these, it's all over there. There's all kinds of people that have shared emails and stuff, and they just kind of deny it, which I don't think is right. Overall, I am really happy with the purchase of this kayak. I put a lot of really big fish in it. It's not a fast kayak by any means, but it's extremely stable. It does really well for what I needed to do. I've put in some 50-60 pound fish, and I have no issue with stability when I'm pulling them into the kayak. Overall, it's a great kayak. Just know, if you plan on purchasing one of these, kind of expect to have some of those issues, the leaking and the warping. Other than that, I really enjoy it. Let me know if you guys have any questions about my kayak or how I rig my stuff for fishing. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you want to see me put this thing to use, make sure that you like and subscribe. And I'm going to be putting this on the water a lot this summer. So thanks, guys.